Hey, we're back. Sorry about that. Hopefully it will be okay now. Just wait 60 seconds and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So today I've been feeling actually really tired from my first long ride back. Thank you, April. First long ride back since the ride around Oz. I went out on Sunday morning. I left home nice and early and met up with the girls. Did about 70 Ks. And I'll fill you in a little bit more as well. My nutrition was actually wrong, which I rarely ever get wrong these days, but I cramped on the way home. I couldn't lie down at all when I got home. I had to keep walking around. Hey, Gab, how are you, mate? So I got my nutrition wrong. I've done that a few times. I haven't done it for about 2 years. There's a good lesson in that for all of us. So, okay, I'm going to rip into it. And then, because we're going to post this up on the page anyway, so you're going to be able to go back and refer to it and do all that sort of stuff. So, number one, reason why I wanted to do this, I've been getting a heap of questions from a lot of you guys in relation to nutrition mainly for training, racing, and general sort of everyday nutrition. So I thought it was, instead of going back and forth, I often find that you get a lot more if you have input from others as well. There might be a question that you thought, hey, that could actually help me, or something might come up and you think, I can probably take something out of that as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with, I've got 4 or 5 questions that you guys have already posted, and I'll start with those. And then I want you to, down below, put any questions whatsoever as they come up. If you have anything specific, just hey, Celia, hey, Georgie, just pop that in there and I'll do my best to answer that. I'm going to try and stick to the hour. Which will take us up to 9 o'clock, because I know everyone is most of you guys have got to get up early tomorrow morning and train again. You better. So we'll try stick to that, and then I'll take it offline as well for any questions that, I'm going to be brutally honest. If I don't know the answer, I'm not just going to give you some sort of BS and hope that the question goes away. I'll go away and research it and come back to you and give you the right answer that's going to get you guys to the goals that you all want to achieve, which I know for every one of you are, some of them ridiculously big. Actually, all of you, you're all having a crack. So it's all good. Felicity, morning off. Yeah, because you're going to ride for 4 days in the hills down in Kiama. So enjoy that. All right. First question, randomly, I'm going to go with Pete Delamar. I hope Pete's on here. If he's not, he's going to see it later. So after a big, I'm going to read it up here so you can see. After a big weekend session, how can I avoid being tired in the Arvo? Or is this simply a part of smashing a big session? Simple answer. If you are out having a massive swim, bike, run, or doing whatever you're going to do, you're getting up at 5 a.m. on a weekend morning after working all week. I know, Pete, you're a good example. You're married, got 2 kids. There's plenty happening. There is absolutely no way to avoid tiredness. That is just a part of, the stuff that we do. Any endurance sport, you're going to get tired at multiple times throughout the week. At times, I've had, just in the last few days, I've had a few of you guys contact me and say, hey, I need a day off, or I'm not feeling too good. A lot of you, especially the guys that are sort of right in the middle of programs now for bigger stuff. Rob's a good example. I'm sort of asking him every couple of days on a scale of 1 to 10 how he feels. And this weekend was a real big weekend. So this morning was time to adapt and change his program around a little bit, and then kick back into gear later in the week. The key thing that Training Peaks gives me at my end is all of your fatigue levels. And after 60 days of you guys pumping your information into there, I will have a really good idea to be able to sit down with each of you individually and go through what all those numbers mean. But in a nutshell, when the fatigue starts to climb, form starts to drop. And when form starts to drop, That's when injuries, sickness, all sorts of things start to go wrong. Mainly injuries, and you might get a head cold or something to start with. So in answer to your question, mate, no, there is absolutely no way around this. You can mask your tiredness by doing something in the afternoon. You can take the kids out. You can have 3 cups of coffee. You can go to a barbecue. You can do whatever you want. But in a nutshell, you're still going to be tired. I often find that if you plan a little bit around that, definitely try and get to bed a little bit earlier the night before. Maybe tell Sarah that you've got an extra half an hour session to do at the end, and maybe you can squeeze in a power nap. I know that can be tough though, mate. So, yes, that's a really hard one, but sleep's the answer. Sleep and rest. And yeah, what's April got there? Triathletes train, eat, sleep, repeat, pretty much. Okay, so that's Mr. Delamar. You've got 2, mate, so you're a lucky man, and you've come up again here. So during weekdays, I wake up and exercise straight away. I think this is going to relate to most of you guys, if not all. So get up in the, yeah, good idea, Gab. I love that one. Under the desk. During weekdays, I wake up and exercise straight away, have enough energy for the session. Should I use a gel for a hit of energy or just use natural energy for the session? Will this help tiredness throughout the day? Great question, mate. This one is, again, it's going to relate to Celia's question a little bit later around carbs and all that sort of stuff. If you're doing a session up to an hour in the morning, quite honestly, you don't need to eat anything before you start. Your body should be well rested. Your glycogen stores should be really high from the day before through eating carbohydrates, and your body overnight will transform that energy to glycogen, and you'll have plenty of energy for probably up to 2 hours. I personally like to always eat something. So even if I'm on the way to the pool or I'm going out on the bike, sorry, I'll start with the pool. If I'm going to the pool, I'll have half a banana, maybe in a full banana before I jump in the pool. If I'm going out on the bike, generally for most of us, it's going to be over an hour. And with the bike, different to running, you can have some proper food before you get on the bike. You don't have that jerky sort of reaction in your stomach when you start to ride as opposed to running. If your body's still trying to process the food you've just eaten 10 minutes before. So on my ride, I would have 3 or 4 pieces of bread or cereal or something with peanut butter or whatever before I went out on the bike, straight on the bike. And then I'd sort of work my day out from there as I went forward. With the gels, definitely do not have a gel. I'll say this to all of you guys for training, no gels prior to training. What the gels do, and I tried to get our whiteboard organized because I wanted to write some notes, but actually I'll give you a quick look. There's about 3,000 notes on there at the moment. Thanks, April. So basically what the gel does is it's going to give you a real spike in energy, which is really good if you are a pro triathlete and you want to dominate the first 150 meters of an Ironman swim or a triathlon swim and you want to be on that front pack. Don't take this the wrong way, guys, but right now there's no one on the line that's sort of at that level, me included. The other thing that the gels do is, so you have a massive spike in energy. You also get a very big low. So it's like giving sugar to a child. I'm sure you know about that, Pete. Once you get them on the sugar roller coaster, it's a slippery slope that needs to be repeated throughout the day as we go. So the lower glycemic index food you can have in the mornings, the better. And I'll go into a bit of race specific stuff a bit later for not just around triathlon, but for endurance sport in general, where you possibly and more than likely, if you're going over 4 hours, you're going to need some sort of sugar intake at the back end of an event to help you finish. And I've definitely been, I'm an advocate for that. It's probably the only time in my life that I'll drink Coca-Cola, and it works for me. It mightn't work for you, and we'll get a bit further into that as we go. So low GI foods before you train. and don't stay right away from the gels prior to training at the moment. If we need to get specific on sessions and things, I'll definitely tie that in. Yeah, so just stick to that if you can. Thank you, Pete. Kevin Murrell, welcome back from Adelaide, mate. We were pretty jealous watching yourself and Joe down there swanning around, some of the best cyclists actually the best cyclists in the world. So we definitely want to try and get down there next year, actually, and have a look at that. Thoughts on supplements, gels, protein powders, magnesium tablets, and someone with my body type, should I eat heaps? Good question again. They're all great questions, actually. Supplements are great. I use a protein powder, and I use a product from Temple Nutrition called Revive, which is it's high in protein. It's got some replacement electrolyte. It's got some carbohydrate in it. So if I do a session, the weekend was a really good example. A long session, I'll always have a Revive after I get off the bike, or off whatever I'm doing. If it's longer than a few hours, that's actually really important to replace your lost electrolytes, and proteins as quick as you can to help aid in recovery. Now, with your magnesium tablets, that is definitely something that is beneficial to a lot of people. I probably could have done with a couple of them late on my ride on Sunday. Definitely, they're a good thing to keep in your armory, especially for you, mate, if you're out on the bike. A bit harder if you're running, as an emergency. But what I'd probably prefer to see you doing is to keep your magnesium levels a little bit higher as you ride, to alleviate cramps. Now, there is definitely some science around this, but there's a lot of work to be done to work out sweat rates and your water intake and all those sorts of numbers. I would probably encourage you guys to do it on a bit of a trial and error. That's what training's for. So you should always be out there. You don't go into your first big event and not having tried the nutrition you're going to use in the race. And I'm just going to write a note. I'll get onto race nutrition and what we can do before that as well. But definitely magnesium's great if you need it. Most of us probably need some sort of magnesium now, whether that's in a sports drink or a powder form, or coconut water is a great one. But pretty hard to get in Tumut, mate, in the back hills on a Sunday afternoon, I'd imagine, the old coconut water. And then in relation to your body type and should I eat heaps, I think you're referring there to after a session, should you have a big meal? And if I'm wrong, just let me know. Yes, within 30 minutes to an hour of you finishing a long session, now I'm talking over 2 to 3 hour session, you should be having a pretty big meal. And this comes back to, I think, Eddie's questions next. Stay away from processed foods. It'll take your body a very long period of time to process that food. And the thing that we often forget is the energy it actually takes to process the food. So you often see, people rewarding themselves with Macca's, KFC, or pizzas. Yes, they absolutely taste amazing, but it can often be to your detriment because your fuel is then being used to digest those foods. So if you can keep it simple around, for example, get some protein into you, whether that be meat, chicken, fish, tofu, whatever it may be, heaps of green veggies, big bowl of brown rice, and put some sauce on it or something if you need to, make it taste a little bit better. But your body will process those foods a hell of a lot better and absorb a lot of the protein quicker and a lot more efficiently. So I hope that helps you, mate. What do we got here? Eddie Vogel, Eddie the Eagle. What drinks would you have on your bike in a half Ironman? How much would you drink? Half Ironman, mate, you are going to know all about this in about 2 weeks when we start doing some longer stuff, especially off the bike. With your event in Husky, we need to ensure that you are having a carbohydrate drink after about 1 to 2 hours on the bike. Now, whether that be what's on course or we get something sorted for you that you can carry yourself, I'll have a chat to you offline about that. I'm not too sure. Someone might be able to help me. Has done Husky. I'm not sure what Emma uses at these events, whether it's Endura, I would think, but fill me in if you know. Endura doesn't work for me. It works for a lot of other people. I have a lot of GI issues with using Endura and things that are high in fructose, and I can't process it, and I'll fill you in a little bit about that in a minute. But definitely, mate, you'll be... Thanks, Felicity. I thought it was. You'll be having... basically, on your bike, we'll have you with 2 bottles. One will be a carbohydrate, electrolyte, sports drink sort of mix, and the other will be water. So you want to be having 600 to 800 mils of water and about 400 to 500 mils of your carbohydrate electrolyte every hour. That's then going to depend on weather. Yep, same here, Gab. That does awful stuff to me. So we will definitely have a chat about that between the two of us, because everyone's going to be different. Some people love stuff that's out there. Some people can have anything. Some people can have nothing. So everyone's a little bit different. And I've got here for you, mate, for Eddie, based on, hang on, that question. I think that answers your question around the drinks. And then you've got a question that you sent me before, which was, hang on, what do we got here? Oh yeah, Eddie, while you're there, mate, I don't know if I filled you in. Every 15, 16, actually in Husky, it's 3 times. It's actually a little bit longer. I think they only have 1 aid station per lap. So every 27 Ks on the bike, you'll go through an aid station, which will have water, electrolyte, some sort of food and all that sort of stuff for you as well. So it's like a smorgasbord. That's why you pay your entry, or part of it anyway. What to eat during training and straight after? What do we stay away from? Well, I think I've answered the stay away from. Stay away from processed foods. If you can have something in the fridge, if you know you're doing a long session, if you can have it there, whiz it up in the microwave or have it cold, whatever. You just need to get a really good carbohydrate and a really good protein source quite quickly after you finish. Up your water intake big time, especially this time of the year. I can't speak enough of making sure you're having at least 3 litres of water a day, which is 5 of them. So it's actually 6 of them. That's a 500 ml bidon. So the more water, the better. And I can say this in confidence with you guys. If your pee's a bit yellow, you need to have more water. It's as simple as that. And you can do that while you're out training, while you're on the bike and all that sort of stuff as well. Post-training, mate, you need to, again, just replenish and replace. The big thing about what you're doing during training, and I think I touched on this in the first question, if you're doing anything up to 2 hours, there's not a huge need for a lot of food. Definitely some water. Again, especially this time of year, maybe an electrolyte drink if it's really hot, especially if you're running. But out on the bike, you sort of, anything up to 2 hours, I'd be just having some water. I'd probably take a banana with me or something like that. Other good carbohydrate options, they work for me, they might not work for everyone, would be Cliff Bars. If you've got a lot of time, or you can convince your partner or one of your friends to knock you up some carbohydrate, nice, healthy cakes, whatever, wrap them up in foil. They tend to get a little bit hot though. And then last resort for me is always find a petrol station that's got a coconut water, or if it's really late in a ride, like I did on Sunday, I found a petrol station, grabbed a can of Coke to get me home. So, and that was a bit of my fault for not sort of planning out my day a little bit better and getting stuck at 30 degrees. Hydrolyte, Gab, I haven't used it, to be perfectly honest, but I'll take a note and I'm going to have a look at it for you. I've never used it, and I don't know what's in it. So I'll definitely find out. Thank you. Any other questions? Keep firing them through, guys, because I need your content's going to be my content. So whatever you need, it doesn't matter I don't care what it is. What I'm going to do is quickly share a little story as to why I see endurance sport as, and I say not everyone here is doing triathlon, but the fourth leg of triathlon is nutrition. And it's, if you get your nutrition wrong in an endurance event, you're going to have a day from hell. And it's happened to me on a couple of occasions, and a few of you guys have been witness to that. And I'll start with the first one. I did a solo Ironman triathlon a couple of years ago, where I stupidly changed my nutrition plan a couple of nights before I was due to do the event. I pushed it pretty hard on the bike on the way out. I had a few guys. I didn't stick to my plan. I rode with other guys. They sort of led me along a little bit, which was good. It was nice and quick, but my body wasn't processing any of the food and the electrolyte and the carbohydrate that I was putting into it. So I got to 90 Ks on the bike, and I pulled over and sat not under a tree at that stage, but had a little bit of an uppity or a spew, whatever you want to call it. And what it just sort of hit home to me. I needed to get everything out of me that I had in me, out of my guts, and start again. So it probably cost me an hour and a half on the day. I felt like death for a long period of time, for a couple of hours. And it took me a few hours then to rebuild my stomach to being able to take on carbohydrates again. So a big lesson for that for me was to never change your nutrition plan within a week of an event. Make sure you're out there and testing it. And I'll speak to all of you guys a long time before you do all the big stuff about, how you're going to feel. We'll do some efforts around your body can react differently if it's processing foods at a homeostasis sort of level, like me sitting here now, as opposed to it will when your heart rate's over 150 beats a minute, or you're out. I'm just reading George's comment. I've lost it. It is the pub. That's true. So your body can definitely run into a lot of trouble. And then in Austria, I qualified for the Half Ironman World Championships, was having a great day. Again, changed my nutrition. Do not ask me why. Long story. And I literally sat under a tree that day and watched the 65 plus age group women ride past me on the bike. I did it I had a goal time of doing about 5 hours at that event. I did 7 hours and 15 minutes. And that sort of led me down the path of doing a lot more research into what I was fueling my body with, which sort of led me to a lot more natural and unprocessed foods, and led me away from things that were high in fructose, which doesn't really agree with me when my body is under load. Question from Felicity first. What quantity of food carbohydrates should we be consuming per hour on long rides? Good question. Everyone's a little bit different. Again, first 2 hours, limit it, about 60 grams of carbohydrate. And then you sort of want to be doing that every hour after that, which sounds like a lot. But if you're going to keep performing at the level that you were and not fading, you're going to need to replenish that pretty well. On my ride, that was a great sort of basis. But some days I could be riding into a headwind at 40 Ks an hour in 40-degree heat. And then 3 weeks later, we're riding with a tailwind and it's 18 degrees. So my body was burning fuel probably a fourth or a quarter as much as what it was. So I think you got to take the conditions a lot into consideration. I'm very big. You guys might have noticed on the weekend, I asked you guys like every hour, have you eaten? Have you eaten? Have you eaten? And I think that's really important, because often we get caught up in races or training sessions and forget to eat. And I've learned that the hard way. I know April has many, many times literally forgotten to eat because you get caught up in, I need to do this at this pace, or I've got a transition coming up, or whatever it may be. But I'll definitely talk to you outside of here as well as to getting that right for you. I'm just going to make a quick note. Eddie, how do you know what weight we should be prior to an event? Okay. I'm not big on scales, mate, at all. I'm more interested in how you're feeling. When you go into a race, there's sort of if you get to race day and you feel like you're a little bit overweight, you're probably 4 to 6 weeks too late. And you see a lot of athletes that really rip in hard for a 4-week period and lose a considerable amount of weight, and you'll see them, they look like really skinny in the face and whatever it'll be. They come to race day and they explode because they've wasted muscle, they haven't eaten enough food, their body is in starvation mode, so everything you're putting in, your body's going to hold on to instead of giving it to your working muscles. It becomes like a survival thing. So that's a really, really good question. But again, I'm not really interested in weight at the moment. I know we've spoken about weight with yourself, and if you're dropping more than half a kilo a week right now, you're probably dropping too much weight, and that's going to hurt you long term, whether that be through an injury or through sickness or through fatigue. So I'm probably, just to sum that up, just more interested in how you're feeling prior to an event, and whether if you're an 8+ out of 10, we're in a pretty good space, as opposed to I'm 90, I wouldn't say 90, I'm 85 kilos and I feel like I should be 83. I don't think that really matters. And they don't weigh you when you finish, mate. So it doesn't really have much of an effect. Fourth leg of triathlon is the pub. That's correct. You won't, the Larimar Hotel, talk about that later. Yeah, and you're right, Gab, to be as light as possible is the best, especially when you're running. And Gab's comment, if anyone didn't see it, was the lighter is better. 100% agree. But again, you just got to make sure that you are that weight 4 to 6 weeks before the race, not in the week leading up to the race. Don't go out to the restaurant the night before and just eat a couple of lettuce leaves because you think you need to be X weight at weigh-in. I went to Ultraman last year, and I had to weigh in each day, and my weight went up. There's a long story behind that, but over the 3 days. But my weight on day one, I looked at April and I was like, wow, I haven't been that heavy for probably a year. So, and I was a little bit overweight, but it wasn't really a major concern until the last day when I had to run with it. So don't worry too much about the number on the scales, especially in the last week before an event. April, okay, here we go. This is good. How we get into it. Is it better to stop and spill and start again if you're in trouble in a race rather than keep adding stuff? Yes. In a nutshell, 100%. If you start to feel like your body's not processing food, you're starting to hear that sort of wishy-washy sound in your stomach. You're starting to sweat up when you shouldn't be. You're starting to get that sort of cold sweats. It means your body's trying to eliminate whatever's inside it. Best, and there's direct, you can't be any other way here. Put your fingers down your throat and get rid of it and start again. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen to any of you guys, but the relief you get when you finally just come to that conclusion that that's what needs to happen for you to continue is a really good point, because then you can start to add water, then a little bit of food, then some electrolyte, and you can start testing to see. And the times it's happened to me, I've come back, if not where I was, not far off it, before I started feeling sick. So there will come to a point where your body, if it's not processing any food, it means your stomach's filling up, and your intestines and all that sort of stuff. And that either goes out here or out somewhere else, or B, and probably just as importantly, means that your muscles and your body's not getting the energy it needs. So good question. Comments from Kevin. Used hydrolate at La Tap, still cramped at 70 Ks. Also felt like training was going well for 3 weeks, and after weekend struggled today. Had a few beers over the weekend. Not a lot. Lesson learnt. Stay away from beer. We did not eat crap. We did eat a lot either, mainly breakfast only. Okay. Yeah, so Kev and Joe have been down in Adelaide. There's a few things around this, mate. I heard the weather was about 400 degrees down there. You're on your feet all day. You're running around. I know how excited you guys were. You're burning off a lot of energy. You've done a really, really solid few weeks of training. We did a big event last weekend, and it's simply a matter of when you have a couple of days off, your body sort of says, oh, thanks very much, I'm going to have a rest now. So it goes back to the mode of the path of least resistance, and that for your body is to fuel its major organs and keep any energy that you would have been using for your working muscles will need to be readdressed. So you would have felt a bit lethargic on the bike today. I'm not surprised whatsoever. And mate, there's no harm in having a few beers. I don't think you and Joe are in the 20 to 25 Corey Worthington stage of your life. So I highly doubt you're out on the piss till 4 o'clock in the morning. So just take it for what it is. You're going to have those ups and downs. And for the guys that are doing, Rob in particular, who's on now his week 3 of his first block of 4 weeks for Ironman, all of my coaching, and you guys will see this as we go, will be in 4-week blocks. So it'll be 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And then we start week 1 of the second block. We'll start at about a week 2 level of the previous block. So we're constantly just gradually stepping it up. So we do want you to have a rest. There's no prizes for getting sick and all that sort of stuff. So that's not uncommon. With your hydrolyte, I've already got a note. I'll have a look at what's in it. I don't think you got any cramp on the ride we did. But that could have been a heat thing as well. I know it was quite hot at Le Tap when you did it as well. So, and let's face it, you did a 20K ride and a 50K ride before it, I think it was. So I definitely want to see what's in the hydrolyte. How are we going for time here? I just don't want to have everyone up till midnight. Okay, heaps of time. Pete Delamar learnt that message. Yep. Late night on the beers, yeah, pay for it with 2 days of dead legs. Sure did, mate. That's what'll happen. Gab, you can spew if you want, but I don't know how that's going to go. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Please take a photo. If you get someone to take a photo or something, it'd be hilarious. Celia, I've got a question here from you, so I'm going to go to that one first. Where are we? How much... I think I've written this down wrong. How carbohydrates during in longer endurance training, and then you're talking about a protein and carb balance, and to try and to work that out. And again, I think we sort of touched on it. Everyone's a little bit different. You need to play around with it a bit. 2 hours, you don't really need the carbs in a training session. 3 hours in, sure, you need to start replenishing carbohydrate, and you need to then keep on top of that. And then with your protein, not as important while you're competing. However, I think when you start going over 6 and 7 hours, it's good to have a protein sort of, some sort of supplementation with protein in there, because you're going to deplete your protein stores. However, let's just play around with that and get the carb intake right, get your fueling right, that you're not fatiguing through lack of carbohydrate. You're actually just fatiguing because you're tired. And then we can sort of look at the protein stuff as well. But bit of wishy-washy answer, but I'll definitely have a chat to you as well about that. What's the best thing to do when overheating in an event, plus or training, especially at the moment? Yeah, great question. I met an American guy today in a bike shop who, it was 38 degrees today in Sydney. I know Melbourne might have been actually the same. He was going out for a training ride up to West Heads, about a 100K ride. He forgot his drink bottles, and he's like, I just need a couple of bottles. I'm like, mate, there's no water out there. You know, you're going to struggle. Fueling for water, especially on long, hot days like this, is so crucial, and in events as well. You'll find when you get to definitely any Ironman, any challenge event, where the heat gets up, they'll actually have ice on the course. And just ice everywhere. As bad as it sounds, throw it in your pants. You've got glands in there that'll really cool a lot quicker. Back of your neck, under your arms, whatever it is. If you're wearing in longer events, I like to wear like a trucker hat or a full hat as opposed to a visor, because you can fill it up with ice and put it straight on your head. But definitely the heat can absolutely destroy you if you don't get your water intake right. And then even on hot days, you know, our longest day on the ride, we did 302 kilometers, and I had 16 liters of water and still lost 1.8 kilos on the day. So it still just wasn't enough. And April and I were really big on just getting as much water in as we can. There's a lot of studies and stuff out there about this water drowning and all that sort of stuff. It hasn't happened to me, and I've had a hell of a lot of water. But you should be having on a really hot day, I'd be going through 1 to 2 liters an hour. As big as that sounds, and the colder the better. Obviously, it's going to, even if it's even a placebo effect of having a cold water and pouring on your face, obviously going to cool you down. But having a nice cold water and you feel it go down your throat and all that's actually a really nice feeling. And the mental side, when it gets hot, is probably as big, if not bigger, than the physical side of the event or the session or whatever it may be. So as much as you can, get it as cold as you can, and really focus on your recovery on hot days. Plenty of stretching, plenty of water post-training session or post-event as well, and stay away from alcohol if you can after big sessions. And it's really hard after a big event, especially doing some of the longer stuff where there's someone with a nice cold drink there for you that's full of nice alcohol to smash down 5 or 6 of them, but it's probably not a great idea unless you're having a few weeks off or whatever after it. Yeah, go for it. So, Georgie, how long a run in training would you start doing anything more than water? What are good options to get fuel when running? Yeah, good question. When I did all my long stuff for Ironman and Ultraman, I used to actually go out the night before and plant bottles out where I was going to run. So I've driven 20 Ks away from home and jumped over fences and found trees that I'd recognize and things, and just put electrolyte mixes or water, because I like to run without carrying anything. And then I'd throw a $10 note or whatever and grab some cold water if I needed it on the way home. It can be difficult. Fuel belts are good for long runs, or the best way to do it is to have, sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. The best way to do it is to do your long runs on a lapped course, and have like a supply of drinks there, or have someone there to help you. Bring a training mate out that can ride alongside you is always a good one. April and I have both helped each other out with that in the past, just meeting up after an hour of a long run to get some food in. Bananas are my go-to source. However, they're very difficult to carry. That's why the gels are really good. However, they also have the detrimental side of, if your body can't process that fuel, can have more of a negative effect than a positive one. In relation to time, especially this time of year, I'd be having some sort of electrolyte after an hour of running. Your body's you're going to be sweating pretty hard. Like if you ran this morning, you're going to be burning through a lot of salt, a lot of energy, and then anything over an hour and a half to 2 hours on the run, you have to start looking at a carbohydrate intake, which if you were planning to do a 2 to 3 hour run, you should ultimately have that nutrition. You would have fueled well the night before. You would have had a really decent low GI breakfast, a porridge, wheat bix, toast, whatever it may be, and get plenty of food in, and then go out from there. But fuel while running, there's actually a new product that April brought home the other day. I think she got it from Running Science, called Hummer Chia Gels. She loved them, all natural. I'm going to try them out and see how we go. So that might be one for people to have a crack at as well. Tailwind, April approved. I'll leave April to answer that one. Easiest gel ever. Yep. Good stuff, Pete. Okay, Felicity, good question. I haven't had a gel for 3 years. So if you can't handle gels, you need to have an alternate source of food, of course. Fruit's great. It's all natural. It's natural sugar. It's pretty high GI. So when we talk about high GI stuff, gels is definitely in that category, where you'll get a really big hit. They're available at Fast Gear. Cool. Okay, thanks, Georgie. So you'll get a really good spike in your energy. And the gels Coca-Cola, Gatorade is another good one. Fruit is another good one, obviously. They're going to really give you a really good little up of energy. However, once you start, you don't stop. So if you're 2 hours into an event, or an hour and a half into an event, and you start smashing gels, Coca-Cola, fruit, whatever it may be, every 15 or 20 minutes, you've got to be going back to that same or similar fuel source, because your body's really going to process that like really quickly, and you're going to want more. You're not even going to want more, you're going to need more. And you're going to need to really rip into that. I'm big on the Coke stuff. I'm not an advocate for Coke whatsoever, but when I'm in the box, it really works for me. So on my ride, I'd have an ice cold Coke, maybe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon if I had a couple hours to go. But once I had that one, it was soft drink every 20 odd Ks from then on. So, and April and I got to know what I was doing really well. So she'd just go straight for the soft drink or straight for the Coke, or I got addicted to, I'm not afraid to admit this, I got addicted to cooler cordial there for a while. But my body just was really craving that fast sugar. So that's how I sort of fueled the back ends of long days for me. Shop blocks, fine. If they work for you, just absolutely go for them. It's just, you're right, it's just a different texture to a gel. You've got to chew it or suck it or whatever you're going to do. They're actually really portable, so they're good for long events. If they work, keep going for it. But you sort of want to be steering away from them until you know that the end is near. So, for example, in a half Ironman or in something like Husky, you want to not be having those guys until 5 to 10 Ks into the run. Try and keep off them on the bike, because if you get on this roller coaster, it can be really detrimental at the back end of a race and for your recovery, to have that amount of fructose floating around. So just bear that in mind. Try and keep it natural as much as you possibly can. I know it's hard. It's bloody hard sometimes. And for as much as the bike as you possibly can and into the run, and then look to basically the end's in sight. Whatever I need here, I'll go to. Caffeine as well is obviously a really good source. But again, you'll get on that really big up and down sort of roller coaster. And that's why you'll see in Ironman events, there's aid stations every 4 kilometers on the run. So you can get by on that. A good mate of April and ours, when he went up to Ultraman, some of these guys at Ultraman are having like 40 to 50 gels over 3 days. They're having like GI issues for 6 months after. And yes, we're not talking on that sort of volume, but that's what an unnatural source of sugar and carbohydrate can do to you over a long period of time. So just be very wary, but definitely if you need it, use it. Yeah. April, what's the difference between bike nutrition and run nutrition with availability and functionality? Oh, wow, did you write that down or something? Okay, good question. Bike nutrition can be a lot easier than run nutrition for a couple of reasons. If you're using a heart rate monitor at the moment and you are riding and running, you'll notice your heart rate on the bike is a lot lower generally than what it is on the run. Simple answer, your body has to work harder to run than it does to ride. And when you're running downhill, you still need to work just as hard sometimes as if you're running uphill. Whereas if you're on a bike, you're freewheeling downhill. So the functionality of nutrition on the bike is that you can carry 2 bananas. You can have you have a little bento box on your top bar. You can carry Cliff Bars. You can do whatever you want. And if you really run out of food, generally, if you're if you're not in Tumut, Kev, you're going to be 5 or 10 kilometers from a shopping center or a servo or something where you can find some sugar to get home. That can be a lot more difficult on the run. On your long runs, you have to plan a lot more. And as I said before, if that's going out the night before and dumping stuff, getting a friend to come out, doing your run so you're going to run past a servo, or you're going to run past 3 bubblers, or all that sort of stuff. Just put a bit of planning around it. Yeah, that's probably I think what you're after there. So Georgie, are there any good recovery options post-session other than protein shakes? Well, protein shakes are there because protein replenishment is great. No, you don't have to have a protein shake. Just have a meal that's got a bit of protein in it. We are, as what do we call it, human beings on this planet now, overprescribed protein like nothing else, and that's called marketing. You don't need as much as what they tell you. However, when you do have, and I'm not going to go into grams and all that sort of stuff, when you finish a ride, you need to have the equivalent of not a palm, but a handful of protein, whether that be meat, chicken, fish, plant-based proteins. A protein shake, they're going to give you grams, and it's usually about 2 scoops of whatever sort of protein you're using. And then I'd look to eat and drink a protein shake. I know that some of them taste awful. I mix mine with coconut water, so they taste a lot better. And yeah, off you go. So yes, there's an alternative. Eat. Yep. See you, Celia. We'll catch up soon. Yeah. So eat up, rest up, water, protein. I'm sorry, but you have to stay on the protein. So, Pete, so more electrolyte carb drink So more electrolyte carb drink and as much water prior to going on the gel, holding off gels to a run and a half Ironman. Yep. Can we have as much of the above liquids as we feel we need? No damage done through the drinks compared to the crap. Yeah, absolutely, mate. So definitely carb drink. You're not going to do yourself too much damage. Actually, you'll probably feel full or you'll start to feel sick. One of the two. But that should be alleviated through training. You should know that come race day, how that's going to feel. And definitely try and keep the gels for the last, let's say on an event, you want to keep them for the last hour and a half. That's probably a pretty good sum up. So will that be a bike, a long run, like a marathon, or a triathlon, whatever it may be, trail running event. You want to try and limit your gel intake to the last period that you possibly can. And then get back on the natural stuff as quickly as you can. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Any other questions, guys? I've got another 10 minutes or so. If you've got anything else whatsoever on nutrition, racing, recovery, one thing I am going to do, I'm not going to ever be the guy that pushes anything on anyone. It's not my style, as you guys all well know. I use Temple Nutrition. They've given me a whole stack of samples of 4 of their products. So I've got their carbohydrate drink, their electrolyte drink. These are the only ones I use. So that's the only ones you're going to get from me to start with. So carbohydrate, electrolyte, a protein, and the one called Revive, which I use post-training. If you want a sample of each of those to try them, I forget who it was. I think it was Hannah tried on the weekend and thought it was absolutely awful. Yes, the NutriFuel does take a little bit to get used to because it contains a high salt content as well. So that sort of alleviates the need for too much electrolyte. So if you do want samples of those, send me a text, comment on here, message, whatever, and I'll sort that out as well. Yeah, A2D for everyone out there. That's Alice Springs to Darwin. That Georgie, Felicity, and Hannah are all having a crack at, and that is going to be an epic adventure. They will definitely supply you with food. Now we need to find out what they're going to do for you because I've seen on those rides before they have like all sorts of funny looking carbohydrates to fuel on. And that can be anywhere from Sayos to peanut butter Vegemite sandwiches. So you just want to get a really good feel as to what you're going to have to eat because you can't carry all that stuff. And then we will look to have you guys having your own electrolyte and probably your own carbohydrate mix on the bike. So that will alleviate a lot of issues. You guys will see some serious carnage in especially the first couple of days on that ride from people that haven't prepared properly for nutrition. And that generally comes down to the fact that they haven't trained enough as well, because they haven't tried what they're going to be using. So we want to alleviate that. There will be a lot of toilet stops for others on the first couple of days, which you guys are going to have to deal with as well. But we will probably look to you guys to take your own stuff, but we'll research what they're going to do. So, yeah. Between training and work, is anyone else feeling this heat really knocking you around? Mate, 100%. I woke up this morning, I had a headache, and we were in air conditioning last night. I sent Rob, I don't think Rob's on here, I think he's still got an auditor with him. I sent him a text this morning. He had a really long ride to do today, and it was just like, just take it easy. If you feel like at any stage, I'm happy to say this to everyone, don't ever feel that you need to get a little green light in Training Peaks and all that sort of stuff. If you don't feel right, we're all adults. We're all old enough to know if we're pushing it too far, back it off. Just flick me a text. I've just put a note in your Training Peaks session. You can do that in a comment down the bottom, and we'll have a look at, why that was. And generally the last few days, it's going to be because of the heat. And Kev, you're probably the same, mate. Just drained, just totally drained from a lot of stuff that's been going on. So don't ever feel bad about just bombing on a session, but all I ask is that you get up and you have a crack. And if having a crack means that you've woken up to the alarm and things just aren't right, just flick a message or a text or whatever. My phone's always on, and we'll work it out from there. So there's no harm in, just saying I'm not with it today, which a few of you are really good at doing, and then we can shuffle your program around to suit. So, yeah, and definitely Eddie should be a bit cooler tomorrow. So, all right, I think we might wrap it up. I've got time for one last question if anyone wants to rip in. As for me, actually, I wanted to give you guys that are on here, still 7 of you there, a little update. I will have a lot more availability come next week. I've been a bit scarce. I've been handling a couple of things. So just so you're all on the same page, I won't be with the Bianchi guys anymore. And I will be working with On The Go Clothing, On The Go Sports, I should say, who supplied our clothing for our ride around Oz. And that's a part-time position. It's going to give me a hell of a lot more time to coach you guys, do a lot more research into coaching, be a better coach, and hopefully start to become an athlete again. So that's going to be really cool over the next few weeks. And we also, we made a decision today with a really, really good mate of mine to start up a podcast again, and that will be starting in the next fortnight. It's going to be called The Peak, and we will be pushing out a bit of stuff about that as well. It's going to be a weekly program where we will have a bit of banter between the two of us, and we'll also interview people that have done some pretty cool stuff, whether that's in business, in sport, in life transformation, all that sort of stuff. So a bit of an update for what's going on there, and yeah, you'll be hearing a bit more from me shortly. So Felicity doing a session now. Geez, you're keen. Okay. All right. I think that's it. So thank you so much for all your interaction, guys. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please just flick them through. I've no questions a stupid question. To date, Pete Delamar, you hold the record for the longest email sent, which is great. The longer, I want someone to go more than that. And he asked some really, really, really cool questions about how to get through his first triathlon. So any questions, not a stupid question, fire them through. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make it up. You'll get some research back from me, or I'll refer you to the person that's going to help you. For example, someone asked me last week about running and stuff like that, and shoes, and just go and see Fletch at Running Science. He's an expert in all that stuff. And I'm looking forward to establishing a good bike partnership shortly with either a brand or a shop. So that'll happen, and we'll just keep growing together and kicking the ass out of a heap of big goals. So thanks very much, guys. Happy training all week. Any questions, send them through, and I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.